Good afternoon. Uh, Today, again, we are going to continue with biological hazards, and then we have completed biological hazards. Now, continuing with the intensity of how biological agents are causing loss and how fast it is spreading. What is the intensity of its spread? What is the intensity of claiming life? Determines the various scale of disaster. So, talking about biological disaster, we are first going to talk about is endemic, which is a very lesser known term in terms of epidemic. Okay, endemic is whenever you have you know a biological disaster happening in a localized form in a more local region among the people, which is locally seen among your city. Supposedly a city or a district being affected by a disease is a endemic, and it does not need external assistance, but with a proper vigilance and action with the local authorities, it can be contained. That becomes a endemic when it is contained by a local authorities and action forces. Epidemic, it becomes an epidemic once where it spreads more than a region or an area. Like it spreads between states, two states, and more than that, also affecting a nation. It is an epidemic. Okay, when it is affecting a nationwide influence or contamination among the people. Okay, so it becomes epidemic. Uh, Epidemic has a greater and larger extent of losses to human life uh, and property. Why? Because it is of a greater extent. It's influencing a population of uh, to a larger extent. A larger degree of population is being affected. So WHO defines defining disease, disaster as being cause of damage to ecological disruption and human loss. So similar, the term this epidemic being described by WHO and United Nations is that when it causes a large amount of influence among people. So epidemic is one of the major disaster of the world, more so in a poverty stricken or a third world countries. Now anymore India is not a third world country. uh, it was initially thought to be a third world country, India. Now being we are among the developing nations. Initially it was thought we belong to a third world countries. Now we are among the fast developing nations and overcoming these situations. So some of the epidemics are not curable or worldwide continue the third uh, world of some of the treatments, the eradication or in India, like earlier they were eradicating certain diseases in India like leprosy. So during the time of leprosy, it was considered as a third world country affecting leprosy to a large amount of people. Then you have tuberculosis, okay, affecting a large amount of people, predominantly over in a country like India and other Asiatic, densely populated areas in like Asia. So epidemiology, an epidemic is a word where it deals with comes from uh, Greek word like epi means upon and demons means people. So it is upon the people. When epidemic is among the last large amount of people, it is epidemiology. Okay, so a classification of disease that appears as a new case in given human population during a given ministerial period or a time at a rate that substantially exceed what is expected uh, you know uh, based on recent experiences. uh, num- new, Then you have the number of new cases in population during during a specific period of time is called an incidence rate. Okay. So epizootic is the same thing that happens in the animals and animal population. Like for example, if you say swine flu was very common in among the uh, pig uh, farming and pig population. Similarly, you have bird flu. It is very common among the poultry farmings, and now eventually it has been seen that these viruses have a tendency of skipping into humans also. So, an epidemic may be restricted to one local outbreak or more than that. Okay, so a local outbreak becomes an endemic, more than a local outbreak becomes a epidemic, and a global outbreak becomes a pandemic. So, a global outbreak, a worldwide outbreak of same disease is called pandemic. Okay. So now, because of corona, there are people who are common now. It is commonly used that what is pandemic. So epidemic disease, like common disease that occur at a constant but a relatively high rate in population, are said to be endemic. So it is like common disease that occur at a constant but relatively high rate in a particular population is said to be endemic. It is a set population being affected. An example of endemic disease is malaria in some part of Africa. A certain type of malaria is very common in Africa, in which a large portion of population is expected to get malaria at some point in their life. Similar things also happen in India also. There are certain places which are more prone to malaria and dengue, and can get affected. Okay. Non-infectious diseases cause, like the term epidemic is often used in a sense to refer widespread and growing societal problems. For example, in discussion of obesity, mental illness, or drug addiction. So this is also some type of epidemic like situation that is happening. If you see, obesity has been learned in uh, USA as an epidemic. There had been time that obesity is more like an epidemic to that country. People are turning out more fat in that region. There are regions where mental illness is very common. Then drug addiction, like in India you have Punjab, where people are getting more addicted to uh, drug. There was a time where it was said that Punjab is if being becoming more addicted to drugs. So it is an epidemic in Punjab. The drug addiction is a epidemic in Punjab. So it can also be used as a metaphorically to relate with the type of a phenomena, like you mentioned, oh, that thing has spread like an epidemic. Okay, you can use it as a metaphor also, but in phenomena is like unsanitary conditions favors the breeding of the pathogens. All right, whether it is breeding of vectors or bacteria or any agents that can have the ability to transmit the biological agents for infections. Non-immune person migrate to epidemic diseased areas like okay, let's talk about this is an incident. Like Africa had been suffering from malaria like disease for a very very long time, for as long as human exist. In fact, in that region, all right. Why? Because uh, it basically it had we have learned malaria from that it has come from Africa. Now, there are certain blood groups in humans that are specific that they cannot get malaria. The sickle cell anemia, that is called. We call it sickle cell anemia. The sickle cell anemia is that when your red blood cell is basically round in shape. It is more circular in shape, but some Africanized tribes and tribal people have the sickle cell blood in them to it is natural defense that human bodies have developed to protect themselves from getting infected through malaria in that region, because sickle cell blood cannot carry the malaria pathogens in their system, and hence they do not get sick with it. Okay, but that anemia has low oxygen carrying capacity because it is in a shape of a sickle, C like shape. Okay, so uh, this is again how a person has developed an immunity. So any person who has developed a certain level of immunity uh, are more protected against a certain type of diseases. Similarly, people who are not immune or have never been exposed to these type of uh, diseases, or have not developed a antibodies against these diseases, they can fall sick if they migrate to that place. Like we are getting corona vaccinated to get ourselves immunized against the coronaviruses, right? In when we are children, we get BCG injections. That is immune. There's a sets of immune injections that after 6 months of uh, child growing up, before that mother's system was protecting through mother's blood and immune system and immune bodies. Once the child comes out from mother's system, the child is exposed to many other pathogens, and no more mother's blood and immune system is available for the child to protect itself. So once the child comes out, we give a set of a vaccination to the child to build a certain level of immunity to that child. Like we get BCG shots so that the child does not get mumps. Mumps is again a viral infection that sometimes claims uh, many lives of infants. So postnatal deaths were very common if you do not build the immune system of the child. So hence, those who have not been BCG vaccinated and exposed to go to a place where the mumps like diseases are very common, they will contract it, right? So that's why when you're cross traveling to any country, there is a set of medical forms that you have to tick, whether you have been vaccinated with certain things or not, and if you have been vaccinated, when you have been vaccinated, and all the medical details are taken when you are traveling across the world. Then decline in nutritional status also will make you more vulnerable to uh, the diseases, right? The contamination of water or food supply, again making you more weaker and susceptible to other diseases also. So the international travel, climate change, all of them are factors which is affecting the epidemics. So worldwide pandemic situation, that this is a historical record of worldwide pandemic, that had affected, like 1855 to 1950s, bubonic plague and third was a you know was a very common thing which was influencing the world all over. Plague, bubonic plague, then in 18 from 1857 to 1859, influenza, that is like people dying with acute pneumonia and cold contraption was very common. Then 1863 to 1875, cholera was again a very common phenomena. Then 1889 and 1892, influenza again hit the worldwide in many places like UK and USA. Then in 1899, again cholera spread to many parts of the world. Okay, in 19 till 1923. So these are the year of in if you see, influenza and cholera were switching. So in that time, yet many the vaccination against these diseases were not developed. Yet we have not able to develop a vaccination against common cold. We do not have vaccination against common cold. And now we have a vaccination against corona, but we still date we do not have vaccination against common cold. You know, so although if anybody says that I just got common cold and I'll have some medicine and I'll be all right, although that is there, but still common cold in malnutrition children claims a lot of life in third world countries and people who are deprived of nutrition. So in 1918 to 1920, Spanish flu, that is influenza, people had this spread worldwide. Why? Because of the World War One. This had spread because World War One influenced many countries, and people were traveling across many countries to gain the world dominance. So more people were hospitalized in World War One from the epidemic than the wounds. So estimates of the dead range from 20 to 100 million worldwide were dead. So then again we have in 1957 influenza and Asian flu. You can call it influenza also, or you can call it Asian flu, which again affected large population of Indian India. Then again in 69, 68, 69 Hong Kong flu. Then Eltor, that is a cholera called Eltor. It affected uh, Italy. Then we have in Roman region, Mediterranean region. Then in 1980s we had a HIV infections, that is human immunity viruses that affected human immunity. Due to HIV, nobody died. HIV converted into AIDS, and AIDS was the reason which made the people more susceptible to other disease. So when if you contract HIV and you furthermore escalate into it into AIDS, you will die of even common cold. So your immune system is so low due to the HIV contraption that you will die of other diseases affecting your body. Okay. Then in 2009, influenza again was a very common phenomena in the form of swine flu, bird flu, basically swine flu, that is called N1H1 uh, infection. N1H1 does have a vaccination, but it is not commonly given to all the people around the world. Although N1H1 shots were very commonly given to American citizens, but in India, if you go to a hospital and ask for N1H1 shots, they will not pursue further in, because people in our country do not completely rely on what you called swine based food, right? We do not eat pigs. We are more of a vegetarian nation. So the contraption of N1H1 flus were less. N1H1 flu is also another type of coronavirus. If you see, it has the similar symptoms and the virus looks similar to that of corona. If you just see the image of corona and the N1H1 flu. All right. So coronavirus had always been there. Like if you have pets, you will know that your pets get corona vaccinated. There are pet coronas affecting people, so they get corona vaccinated. No, so they had vaccinated nations before we had vaccination against corona. So pets have this. Now we eventually are having it. I don't know how much successful it is, but it is said that getting yourself corona shots is providing you more protection. Even if you get infected, it will not protect you from getting infected, but it will provide you a little more resilience to fight with the disease. So if you are vaccinated, corona vaccinated, you may contract the disease, but the effect or the influence of the virus will be lesser. You, or maybe you will come up with mild fever, or or cough and cold, and with few medicines you can recover. Okay, you will not have to be getting hospitalized or ventilized due to this, right? So vaccination is very important in today's time. So let's talk about swine flu. This is a case study about N1H1 virus, or in another way, aka swine flu. Swine flu influenza is a respiratory disease, or if a pig caused by a type of A influenza virus that causes regular outbreaks in the pigs. So swine flu virus have been reported to spread from person to person, but in the past it was only transmitted uh, mm, not in and substandard into people. It was only transmitted among the animal. So swine flu was first proposed to be a disease related to human influenza during 1980s. So it was first identified in 1918 flu pandemic, when pigs became sick at the same time as a human. So in 18, swine flu was associated with H1N1 and influenza appearing in pigs. So it was only noted a new disease from pig in 1980, after the first large outbreak of influenza amongst the people of 50 to 100 people were killed worldwide because of the outbreak. In 1976, USA outbreak happened. An army official died and some were hospitalized due to new strand of swine flu. It did not spread beyond some region in USA. Then in 1988, zoonotic influenza, in that is in September 1988, swine flu virus killed a woman and infected other in Wisconsin. So this was not a community outbreak, but a spread through other contingents. Again in 1998, a US outbreak in swine flu. In 2007, Philippine outbreak in swine flu. And in 2009, outbreak in human. First case, first case of H1N1 was reported in USA in the farm worker who uh, recently returned from Mexico, and there were the fear that the swine will become a major global pandemic in the winter month. So, with many countries planning to major vaccination campaign, the symptoms of swine flu in people are similar to the symptoms of regular human flu, and uh, you know uh, incube the um, okay. Now the symptoms of swine flu in people are similar to the symptoms of regular human flu, and include fever, cough, sore throat, body aches, chills, and fatigues. Some people have reported diarrhea and vomiting in the influenza swine flu. So, like seasonal flu, swine flu may cause worsening and drying chronic medical condition during winters. The spread of this swine flu, that is N1H1 virus, is thought to be a happening in some way or other seasonal spread. So, swine flu virus are spread mainly from person to person through coughing, sneezing, basically the exhalation of body fluid, just like what is happening with coronavirus. That's why we are recommending people to maintain certain distance through that, so that we do not contract the infection through different mediums. Okay. Swine flu on world map. This is the distribution of swine flu on the world map. If you see here this distribution, how what is the level of contamination which has been spread. India being almost negligible with effect of swine flu, because here it is not consumed very commonly. All right. Then you have quite a high number of swine flu infecting uh, you know, uh, Russia and European countries. Again, areas like Scandinavia and all those countries are not much affected by swine flu, because of some other reasons, some public health system that they have followed. But there are very negligible records in Africa, because again these are the countries where uh, the religiously they are not supposed to have uh, s- uh, swine. They are not supposed to come in contact with swines so much. Okay, so the cases were about 1 to 10 person in that region. In India, there was about 100 people reported with, swine flu, and so and the Middle East. In America, again, you have a medical, system well established, so there were not much of a reported cases, but it was almost crossing over 10,000 person infected in that region. Then you have Latin America, where again this area, the Chile and all these regions were infected with swine flu. Now conditions in India is not very worst, did not go very worst. The total number of deaths from the influenza has reached to only about 60 people. The cumulative laboratory confirmed death reported by the state in August 3rd, 2009, were about 60, and Maharashtra having 36, Karnataka, Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, Delhi, Kerala, and so on. Meanwhile, the country also reported 100 three swine flu positive cases, pushing to the total of about 12 2,000 people, more than 2,000 people being infected by this swine flu. Okay. Again, this is a cycle that we must see, starting from mitigation, research, effective medicines, improve plan and infrastructure, then preparedness, early warning, general awareness, avoid gathering and traveling were disseminated. Then you have events like during the pandemic, the health management analysis and mapping and infrastructures studying were implemented. Then emergency treatment, interrupt transmission, rescues, operations, transportation, medication, coordination, and food supply and water supply was given. Then in the reconstruction phase, you were given assistance and to reconstruct the entire structure or fabrics of the society to overcome the effect of the swine flu. So, general awareness played a very important role among the population to contain these things. General awareness with cooked food, and boiled, cooking food, properly boiling it, chlorinating the water should become, was a very common thing in using insecticides and mosquito or insect repellent, clinical isolation of the suspected cases, a network of specialized laboratories, then mass immunization, enhancing the knowledge and skill of medicines. All right, played very vital role in controlling and adherence impact of the uh, swine flu. Avoid a large gathering and screening of the affected people were taken up. Coordination with other jurisdictions were also taken up into consideration. Regional, local health authorities and other designated license should communicate frequently and regarding the situation and consult with each other when recommending new policies and causes of the actions. So medical coverage has to be taken as the first priority. Media mass coverage also has to be taken in consideration, where mass media will be assimilated and taken in for the spread of awareness, situation assessment of situation assessment, and other thing to the people, so that they know what is the status, what is the situation, and how to deal with that to reduce the amount of impact of losses. Then you measure the vulnerability and risk. What are the vulnerable sectors? What is the risk that is pertaining in that region? It is already known as a, particularly have chronic, like in just